welcome back to the Film Reelcast. I'm Stuart, I'm your host. We're back in the dojo. It's episode 9 already of season 1, called Different But Same. Before we get into that, please subscribe, please leave comments, please share. Okay, I really enjoy talking about this program, as you probably already gathered from the excitement of episode 8. It'll be great if you could just leave your feedback, leave comments, get involved in the conversation. It'll be really good to talk to you. So please subscribe, it's really important you do that, and then word can get around about these videos. I know the internet is flooded with Cobra Kai, but just subscribe. I've also got The Shield that I'm talking about, which is a really hard-hitting police drama. It involves a corrupt police team. This series really questions the viewer's morals, as in what side of the fence they're on, as in police corruption being a good thing to get what they want. And it leaves you questioning, even though you know what they did was wrong and the way they went about it was highly corrupt and illegal, but they get the bad guy. And you question, it makes you question yourself. It's really cleverly written. And it's called The Shield. And you subscribe, you can follow on the playlist. I think I've done 9 episodes now, reviewed that. I talk about it in quite depth. I leave questions for people to comment on and give feedback. So just subscribe and you won't miss out on anything. Again, iTunes, Android, good podcast platforms. We've got the Film Reelcast podcast, the audio podcast, where it's myself and James. Just finished doing the Meg. That'll be out very soon, along with Police Academy. There's so many films. There's even Arrow and Flash as well, which we talk about for the first couple of seasons whilst it would remain good. So there's so much. There's something for everyone, I guarantee that. It's free. There's no adverts. It's just podcasting, talking about films. So that's the Film Reelcast on Android and iTunes. Subscribe again and you won't miss an episode. A massive catalogue to listen to. Okay, on with episode 9, season 1, Different But Same of Cobra Kai. Okay, so if you remember from the last episode, we had the training in the forest with Daniel and Robbie. And they went through various kind of montages of training, but one thing they did, and he made a point of highlighting, and I showed you, if you remember, they really pulled this scene out of Empire Strikes Back with Yoda and Luke Skywalker in the Dagobah system, I think it was called, when he's doing the handstand. And Daniel mentions that this was something Mr. Miyagi taught him, that if you stand on one hand, for some reason you do this in a fight, I have no idea why you do this, but it leaves both legs and your other arm free to make some kind of special move. We don't know what it is yet, and Daniel said he did it once when he was 20. Mr. Miyagi tried to teach him, but it's so hard to do. I can't imagine Mr. Miyagi doing this move at his age. Honestly can't. But he says that he taught him how to do it. So, Robbie's down at the skate park, and you wonder what he's doing at the skate park, first of all. And he's going down the kind of these slopes, making several attempts at doing it, and he keeps failing. But then he gets it, and you see him, and it's a really good shot. You see him on a massive wide angle doing this handstand with one arm on the edge of the platform. And he does it, and it's held there on the screen for quite a long time with the wording Cobra Kai coming up. It looks really good. And that could be more foreshadow. This has got so much foreshadow. But he's done that move, which Daniel has tried to do time and time again. Admittedly, it was with the assistance of the slope and the skateboard. But he's done that move. Is this a move which will come into play later on? But the fact that he's done it, does it mean the midichlorians running through Robbie's body is more powerful than Daniel's? We'll yet to find out. But he's done the move that Daniel can't do. He did it first go. So that's got to mean something later on. So you next see Johnny arrive at Daniel's house, and you think it's going to kick off. Johnny's pissed off. Remember, he's had his car torched. He's had every kind of disruption. Things were going really well. He's just had that meal with Miguel's mum and Miguel's nan, and life is good. But his car's smashed up, and he realises that it's Daniel. When he thought everything was going smooth, Daniel turns up, as far as he's aware, and ruins everything, because Louie says this is done for Daniel. So he goes round his house, and there's that confrontation by the pool, and they're both facing off. And this is a shock to Daniel. Remember, Daniel knows nothing about this. He didn't send Louie to go and smash his cars up. He did it off his own back. And they have that face-off in the garden, which is disrupted by Amanda. And she takes it really calm, and she kind of treats it as if it's a bit of a joke, and says, look, are you two going to fight? I really don't want you to fight. I don't want blood all around the pool, and you ruining the garden. So she's not taking it seriously, and she doesn't appear concerned. So both of them agree, reluctantly, to sit and chat it out. which they do at the table. And he says that it was caused by your daughter. She smashed into my car and you didn't believe me, which he didn't. And if you remember from season 1, Samantha was in the car with Yasmin and Moon when they smashed into Johnny's car and they drove off. And then he saw her at the garage. So it's another reason to hate Daniel. Because obviously there's that dislike there already. And they don't believe Johnny that Samantha would have done that. But in the end, Amanda talks Daniel, I don't know how she does it, but she talks Daniel into giving him one of his cars from the garage. So it's in like the second hand lot and he agrees to give it to him. So they go there and Johnny takes his muscle car. And it's a really, really nice car. So they go for a test drive in this nice muscle car. And they're both sitting there and Johnny turns on the radio. And they're playing REO Speedwagon. Proper 80s. Really 80s. And one of them starts singing. I believe it's Daniel starts singing. And it's questioned. And then he says, what? You're not into Speedwagon? And he says, what man isn't into Speedwagon? What? I never thought I'd hear a sentence where someone says, what man doesn't like Speedwagon? REO Speedwagon, the classic 80s. So they're both playing this song, they're both singing, they're both nodding their heads. It's very much like when Kick-Ass is in the car with the other kid and they're both listening to some tunes and they're both just sitting there nodding their head. It's pretty much the same moment that they're both sitting in this muscle car just nodding their head listening to REO Speedwagon, and it's so good. And they've got that connection there, and it's as if no one wants to make the first move of being nice to each other, but and you could tell deep down they want to do that. They've got that bond, and it's such a nice little moment, and you can see them bonding there, and it's such a surprise. I didn't think it would go this way. So we next see Miguel, Aisha and Hawk and Dimitri just chilling out together. And it's a really funny scene when they're chatting and you see in the background Hawk's there and he's sparring one of the other kids from the Cobra Kai dojo. And as they're talking, really casual, it's Hawk does his kind of roundhouse and kicks his kid in the face, and you actually see it full on. And this other kid goes down and Hawk just doesn't batter an eyelid. He doesn't care. He just walks over to the group as if nothing's happened. And it's a really comical scene. It just goes to show that Hawk has turned really ruthless. He's a real geezer now. He just doesn't care. Those timid days are long gone. And Aisha sees a message on her phone. And this message is from Yasmin. And again, it's what Yasmin does best. It's bullying. And it's a message that when Aisha was breaking those blocks of wood that she put up about being really fat again, she always attacks how big that Aisha is. And it's really hurtful and it's horrible. But this is a different kind of Aisha, and she's soon to find out what kind of Aisha she's going to face. And she also sees a post that Yasmin is going to hold a party down at this kind of bay, and everyone's invited who's in. Everyone who's fashionable, who's popular, is going to be invited. But they decide, bollocks, we're going to have a party there. No one's going to stop us. We'll get there first, and we'll have a party, and we'll invite who we want. And when they turn up, they can just piss off. This is the kind of confidence. This is a different person, which Aisha is. And again, which Eli is, which Dimitri is, and Miguel, because they wouldn't have done this before. There was that pecking order, and at the very bottom. But now they've got the confidence. And it is thanks to Cobra Kai. They've got that confidence to hold a party regardless and invite all their friends. And again, it's that social side, that social circle, which they've created themselves through the confidence they've got from Cobra Kai. So it does pay off, and it leads to a really good scene. So whilst they're taking their car for a test drive, Daniel stops off at the flat where he first moved in with his mum in the original 84 Karate Kid. And he says he's never been there before, and that's a kind of a blast back in time for him. But I struggle to believe, being that in fact it's so close, that he hasn't been there before since 1984. But anyway, they go there and the swimming pool's got water in, and it's a bit tidier than it was when he first moved in. And you see the flashback to when he was carrying his bike and when he goes into the flat with his mum, back from the original. And it's a really nice, again, you've got that nostalgia, they reminisce, they bring you back into 84. And it's quite a nice moment. But what I like is that Johnny initially says, yeah, I had a bigger pool than this. I had a better house than this. And Daniel says, well, I'm not surprised. But then Johnny says, which is mentioned before, when he was talking to Miguel's mum, that his dad was an arsehole, his stepdad, and that he didn't get on with him, and that just because was rich and he had money and a big house, it doesn't mean he was happy, and that his dad treated him like shit. And they kind of again have that bonding moment that maybe they've got more in common than they realise, and if they stop arguing and look past that, that they are more alike than what they suggest. And that's probably why it's called Different But Same, because they are the same people. They virtually come up from the same background. They've both got karate, and again they talk about having karate mentors with Kreese and Mr. Miyagi, and they're both in the same place. And it's a nice bonding moment. Again, it's going really smooth, surprisingly smooth between the two, and they're finding a lot of connections. So after they leave the apartments where Daniel used to live, they go to a bar, and it's nice because they sit and chill out at the bar and have a few drinks. And it's what you want in a way. It's a surprise. I didn't see this coming. All the build up to this, previous episodes I've been reviewing, I've spoken about them two just facing off, having a fight, and I thought that's where it was going to go. But no, they're sitting in a bar, totally out of the blue, and they're bonding, and it's nice. They talk about different moments, like when Daniel had spaghetti kicked all over him when he was in the restaurant, and then afterwards he says, yeah, Ali smacked you for doing that. And they both laugh about those incidents, which is nice, because at the time in the original Karate Kid, it was a big deal. It kind of split up, and they were massive rivals, but now they're talking about it laughing. And then they look and talk about Ali, and Daniel says, yeah, Ali's kind of moved, I think it's to Denver, and she's married to a doctor, and she's doing really well. And Johnny asks, how do you know this? And he says, I've looked on Facebook. And he's still back in the 80s, because Johnny says that classic line, what's a Facebook? And he's just got no clue. So Daniel shows him, and Daniel plays it cool, like, well, we're not friends. I don't really know. I've not seen her at all. He says, well, for someone you haven't seen or you're not particularly interested in, you do know her whole life, which he does, what job she's got, what job her husband's got, where they're living, what holidays they're doing, what hobbies they've got. He knows everything. And he says, I've not friended her on Facebook because she hasn't friended me. So there's that possible spark there that he still likes her, despite his life. It was his first love, so he's going to like her. And does that mean the door could be open for Ali to make a return in a couple of seasons' time, or even next season? I've got no clue, remember. I don't even know what happens next. But is Ali going to come back? And is this foreshadow, like this programme loves to do, for Ali's return? But again, they're both agreeing, and they're both on each other's side. And it's really nice to see these two guys, who have been bitter rivals, get on with each other so well. So Samantha goes home, and she's confronted by Amanda, and Amanda just asks her out of curiosity, because it's been brought up by Johnny about the car and smashing into it, were you in an accident with Yasmin and Moon? And fair play, she's honest, and she says yes. And due to this, she realises that Johnny isn't lying, and he's got reason to be pissed off with Daniel, because his car was smashed into by Samantha. So she grounds her, and she takes away her phones, takes away her tablets, takes away everything. Pretty much prompted by Anthony, who's a horrible little brother, who's guided Mum on different ways that she can communicate. So she's stuck at home. And due to this, Miguel is trying to get hold of her. Because remember, Miguel's still bitter from the conversation they had, where where she referred to Miguel as just being a friend, no one special. And then he had the misfortune of going to Daniel's house, where he tried to make it up and saw everyone playing Happy Families in the garden, which broke his heart. So already there, he's disappointed, and he's got that a bit of hatred for Robbie, who's moving in on his girl. So it's all bubbling up, ready to come to the surface. Okay, so you can't have a party without any beer. So Aisha, Miguel and Hawk go to buy some beer for their party. And this really reminds me of Superbad, the clip where they go into the shop to buy their alcohol, and they know they're underage, but they still need to do it because they can't have a party without alcohol. Hawk is super confident that he can provide them with beer, and he walks up to the counter with his pack of beer, and he produces his fake ID, and even turns around and points at one of the other little kids there who belongs to the dojo as being one of his kids. And he produces the fake ID, and I can just imagine the fake ID being the McLovin ID in Superbad. And it's just ridiculous, because there's no way he looks 21 years old. So it's a crazy fake ID. But the guy buys it. He knows he's underage. Fair play. And he gives him the alcohol. But it's a really funny scene. It really reminded me of Superbad and him being McLovin. I'm surprised he didn't change himself to Hawk McLovin just for this scene. And whilst they're inside buying the beer, you see Miguel outside and he's heartbroken. He keeps trying to ring Samantha again and again and again. And now he's turned it so he's apologising, even though he's done nothing wrong. That's what love does. And he's apologising to her. But she's not picking up. Because Amanda's taken the phones away. She can't get hold of him even if she wanted to. And it's really pulling at his heartstrings. And it's really making him wonder what she's doing and who she's doing it with, if anything. Because the last time that he really has thoughts and went to see her properly was when he went to the home address and saw Robbie playing Happy Families in the back garden. Now that isn't Robbie's fault, but it's enough to put doubt in his mind. Remember, after the incident of it's just a friend, a study buddy who I'm talking to on FaceTime, enough of a seed to put doubt in his mind that possibly she's losing interest and maybe she's moving on to Robbie. So Robbie turns up at Daniel's home address because he's arranged to train with him. He bumps into Samantha and learns that she's been grounded. Remember, he likes Samantha and she quite likes him. They've been at the dinner table last week, flirting with each other, openly flirting. There is that chemistry that I spoke about, remember? So he learns that she's grounded and he fakes a sprained ankle. Quite how he does this, I don't know, because he's been nowhere. He's just hanging around the house and suddenly he sprains his ankle. But Amanda laps it up and says, fine, I can't take you home, I'm busy, but Samantha will take you home. So he leaves the house with Samantha, instantly gets rid of his limp and says, right, you were a prisoner in the house, I'm going to break you free. Where do you want to go? And much to his disappointment, she learns, where I want to go is to go and meet my boyfriend. Crushes his dreams of them two hanging around together. Just them two. But at the lake, Miguel, which is never a good mixture for someone of his age and the rage burning up inside of him, Miguel is pissed up. He's been drinking beers down by the lake. It's been bubbling up inside of him that he can't get hold of Samantha. And you know what young love's like. You go through so many different scenarios of what could be happening and why she's not talking to you, that he's got himself into a bit of a state. And whilst they're at the lake, one of the best moments, something that I've been talking about, that I've been hoping for, actually happens. Aisha, she's confronted by Yasmin, because Yasmin, Moon and Kyla arrive at the lake, and much to their shock and disappointment that all of the geeks, the unpopular people, are having a party down there. And there's a great moment where she says to Kyla, go down there and tell them to go. And he's like, fuck it, yeah, I'll go down there and tell them to go. Not a problem. But he sees Miguel and the look on Kyla's face of, oh shit, I'm not going anywhere near that guy because he kicks my ass in front of everyone and I don't fancy that happening again. So he says, sod it, we'll leave it. I don't want to party anyway. And he goes. And it's brilliant. The bully has been taken down. So Moon goes down there. She's quite happy to go down there. And you see a different side to her. But Yasmin reluctantly goes down there. She's got no other friends, really. And she goes there and she confronts Aisha. And she says to her, you're a fat cow and you've taken over this party and you're fugly. That's what she calls her. And Aisha is brilliant. She walks up to her. And I don't know what it's called. If you know what this is called, please leave a comment because I have no idea. She grabs her knickers by the front and she gives her a front wedgie. And she says, strike first. And she chucks her on the floor. But it's brilliant. A front wedgie, whatever that's called, leave a comment, tell me. I have no idea. It looks extremely painful. And again, everyone is videoing this. And Yasmin is humiliated. Moon is even kissing Hawk. He's pulled Moon. And she said, I've apologised. I admitted that I was wrong and I'm going to stay here and these are my friends. So that's a double kick in the face or a double front wedgie for Yasmin, which is brilliant. So Samantha and Robbie arrive at the lake. And as they're walking down towards them, Miguel sees them. And you could instantly see rage on his face. And he says, I've been calling you, you've not been answering. So he naturally puts two and two together and comes up with 5 that you've not been answering because you've been with Robbie. So he pushes Robbie on the floor. And when she tries to step in, he somehow accidentally, and it is by accident, knocks her on the floor. And she flips her shit. And she says, my dad was right. Cobra Kai is bad. So obviously after what's happened, Samantha just leaves. And again, remember what I said last episode? Miguel turns up. It's that tropey way that Miguel turns up and starts a fight, and she embarrasses him, or he embarrasses her. Then that trope of "I told you Cobra Kai were bad," then she'll end it with Miguel, and she'll go to Robbie. Where the trope is that the good person who's done nothing wrong makes that wrong decision and pushes his girlfriend, or sometimes boyfriend, into the arms of the person they despise most. And that's what I said may happen, because that's the trope, and this is exactly what happens. From being thrown on the floor, Samantha gets up and shouts at Miguel and leaves with Robbie, playing straight into Robbie's arms. This is what he wanted. But the happiness doesn't last for long. And it doesn't last long for Johnny, for Daniel, and for Robbie. When they get back home to Daniel's house, that is a good scene, and it's ruined, and I'd love to have seen this played out. They arrive in their muscle car, they've had a few drinks, they really bonded, and they appear to be good friends. It's all going really, really smooth. And they talk about that scene in the end of Rocky 3, where Rocky and Apollo Creed are boxing in the ring. Behind closed doors, no one's watching, they just spar. They have a fight, them two, just to see who is the best. Because they've drawn so many times, and it's been so close. And they agree, and they refer to it as a Rocky 3. That's what they agreed to do. And as they walk into the dojo, Robbie's there. And Johnny sees Robbie, and he gets so angry. What are you doing here? So he starts on him. Then he realises that Daniel doesn't know, and he calls him Dad. And Daniel says, "Dad, this is your son." So Johnny just walks out in a rage, really annoyed that he finds his son with Daniel. Daniel then turns to Robbie and says, "Oh, you a spy? Have you been doing this for shits and giggles, just to get behind my back, to piss me off, to play some kind of game, to give your dad all of this information, and that all the training I've been doing is just for a joke?" So Daniel just leaves, then Robbie just leaves, and everything they had between the three of them has been destroyed. Just like that, in that split second, from going really well to sparring to bonding to having nothing. And it's a real shame that it came to this crossroads. But again, it comes to the crossroads just before the Cobra Kai internet tournament. And I thought Daniel was going to enter with Robbie, but it doesn't appear to be that way unless circumstances change. Unless Samantha's going to enter that tournament now to go against Robbie or Miguel. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how they can repair this, any of them. But it's a really exciting way to end. And all the bonds that were built up over the last few episodes have now been broken. So that was Different But Same. Episode 9, Season 1. A really good episode. Okay, before we go, just a reminder, please, as it says down the bottom of the screen, please subscribe. And that will be absolutely great. Leave comments, share, and I'll get back to you. Remember, I'm at the Film Reel Cast on Twitter. Please follow. You can catch all of my previous episodes of Cobra Kai and of The Shield and of our audio podcast as well. And we're on iTunes and with Facebook as well, the Film Reel Cast. We're getting everywhere. And I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to hear your opinions on various films or TV series or even trailers that are coming out. It'll be great to talk to you. Okay, I'm Stuart. I'm your host, and I'll be back next with episode 10 of Cobra Kai and episode 10 of The Shield. Thanks for watching.